I'm so sorry that I've been so MIA. It's just that during this time, I have myself been schooled by God, if that makes any sense at all to anyone. It's just a period of time where God allowed me to reflect a lot on where I was, where I'm at, and where I'm going. And during this time of me kind of like going soul searching and just allowing God to school me, something came up in my spirit. Even your worst stories can become testimonies. I really believe in that, because if not for these stories, these events, these negative things that we've been through, we would not be able to understand the testimony behind it. What has permitted you to have gone through certain things for you to become a testimony for someone? Do you know how funny it is sometimes, especially during this time, God has been putting me through a series of scenarios. Has been taking me places, and during this time he's been helping me to understand why I went through certain things, or why he allowed me to go through certain things, and the reason behind me going through these things as well. You know, I've gotten to a point where I can share my story. If I feel driven, I can share my story enough. I can share my story with anyone, and I don't do it to make myself sound like a sob story or make it seem like I've been through the worst of worst things, but I choose to share these stories with people to show them that your story can truly become a testimony. When we testify God's goodness, it's because he's taken us out of something that we were in before and brought us somewhere else. Does that make sense? You know, so listen, even your worst of worst stories, even a bad story can become a testimony to anyone. Even if you've been through abuse, whether physical abuse, emotional abuse, whatever kind of abuse, and you're now not in an abusive environment, that's a testimony. Do you know what I mean? And your story of abuse becomes, you know, something that can fortify somebody else that perhaps is in abuse to come out of that situation of being in abuse. People who perhaps suffered depression, have suffered whatever have you, a lot of these people who come out the other end will share these experiences in order to motivate other people, to help other people understand that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that you don't have to suffer in silence, and that you don't have to continue living that life that you're living at the end of the day. Even your worst memories can become subjects or reasons as to why you should adore God or worship God. Most of the time when I'm worshiping God, again, he's taking me through my life, he's taking me through my experiences, he's taking me through the things that I've been exposed to, that in itself becomes fuel for me in his presence. And this is why I always say to people that you cannot lack words. Oh, glory. You cannot lack words to say before God, because if you look at your life, you look at where he got you from. I always say that God scraped me off the pavement, right? That's the point that I was at. You know, that is where I was, and he scraped me off from that pavement and lifted me up. And when you look at these things, you look at what you've been through, you look at, you know, all you've had to endure, you look at your story, what makes you you, but you look at your story and you say, I cannot lack words to say before. If you're going through your worst times right now, just know that there's a testimony behind this worst time. If you're in your desert, you're in your storm, you are in your period of time where it feels like everything is going wrong, or you feel like nothing is going right, or you feel like this is the worst time for you, just know that there is a testimony behind this negativity, behind this period of time that seems so uncertain. Even this pandemic situation that we're going through, a lot of people have given up on this year, but I know of this God, and he's a living God at the end of the day, and I know that there's still time for me to hear congratulations, for me to hear well done, for me to hear I've got it, I've done it, I passed, I whatever have you. There is still time. Why are we putting a full stop where God chooses to put a comma? Like, this year hasn't even ended yet, and yes, it's been one of the hardest years, you know, for a lot of us. You know, there's been such difficulties during this year, but my focus is not on what has happened now. My focus is on what is going, because like I said, this is a story. You know, this is a story for all of us. Everyone that has been part of this pandemic situation, this is a part of our story. The importance is not the story. The importance is the testimony behind the story. Behind the testimony that will come through the story, I should say. Do you see? Listen. Your story is yours to own it. It's just up to you what you choose to do, because a lot of the time we want to pretend like certain things never happened because it's easier. But once you start to embrace where you came from, you start to embrace what you've been through, like I said, it can help somebody else through stuff. You hear people who, you know, after 10 years of marriage, seeing no child and everything, and all of a sudden God has blessed them with triplets, quadruplets, you name it. You know, you hear about people who were living rough on the streets, you know, who didn't know when their next meal was going to come, now being business owners, entrepreneurs, having money, you know, all of this. About people who have been through abusive relationships, you know, and have given up on love, finally finding their soulmate and the person that they were initially supposed to be with, and living a great life. See where I'm coming from? Like, the possibilities are endless as to what your story can bring you. So don't look at your story and think, oh, this is it for me. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, that thought just pops into your head, and it's like, huh, why am I even thinking about this thing? And you literally will just sit there like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Oh my gosh, how could I allow that to happen? Oh my gosh, how could I have been so stupid? We all go through those moments where we look at the situation, we think, why did I do that? Why did I allow that to happen? Who is that person that allowed those things to happen? But you just learn how to appreciate those moments. I look back at my life and I appreciate, do you know what? Yeah, I always say to God, thank you for allowing me to have gone through all of these things, because all of those things allowed me, or all of those things paved the way for me to be the person that I am today. If I had not gone through those situations, I wouldn't be the woman that I am today. So I thank God on a daily for allowing me to have allowed certain things to have happened. Do you see? Because if those things never happened, is what, maybe I wouldn't be where I am. Maybe I wouldn't be as far ahead as I am. We like to look at a situation and be like, oh, if I hadn't have done that, then maybe I would be a bit more far ahead, or maybe I could have been a better person, or maybe I'll be in a different situation. So I have no regrets. I don't live my life with regrets. You had to go through all of those things. Don't live your life regretting all of those things. Don't live your life regretting your choices or anything that you do. We move and we learn at the end of the day. Can become, your story will make room for your testimony. You know, oh, I like that one better. Learn to embrace the things that you've been through. Learn to embrace your story. Learn to embrace your scars. Learn to embrace the things that kept you up at night crying, the things that caused you pain, the things that caused you trauma. Like, there is always the other side of the leaf, you know. There's always a positive to a negative. All these things that we go through as well are just in the moment. You know, it's like, for example, a breakup. When you go through a breakup, you never think that you're gonna get over that. You're like, gosh, I love them so much. How am I going to live without them? How am I going to breathe without them? How am I going to eat without them? But actually what happens? 1 week goes by, 2 weeks goes by, 3 weeks go by. Before you know it, the person is not even on your mind anymore. Before you know it, it's not even an issue anymore. Before you know it, you don't even like the person anymore. Before you know it, they're a distant memory, you know, of your past. And that's the same thing with our stories, you know, especially when you're going through it, it's very painful. Especially when you're it's still new, it's very painful. But the more, you know, they say that time is a healer. You know, the more that we go through these situations and the more time has passed since we've gone through those situations, time will do its job to heal. And we won't look at that and feel like broken vases anymore, or broken vases anymore. We will look at that and be like, oh, that was a period of my time where I was at my lowest, but thank God I'm no longer there. You know, that was a period of time where I didn't think I was going to make it, but thank God I made it. That was a period of time where I felt like I was going to, you know, I was gonna kill myself, but thank God I didn't make the choice to end my own life. I'm still here, I'm still living, I'm still breathing. You know, you end up seeing the greatness of God through your situations as well, because like I said, you've been through the worst of worst situations and you're no longer in that situation. You praise God. It gives you reasons to worship him even more, going to even deeper. Oh my gosh, like especially when I'm at church, the things that I do, the way I get on the floor, the way I worship, the way that I cry sometimes. People don't understand why I'm crying. People are looking at me like, what's wrong with this girl? Why is she even crying like that? Or why is she even, oh, she's being so dramatic. You don't know my story. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know what I've seen, you know. And when I'm crying like that, when I'm worshiping God like that, when I'm ministering to other people, whenever I'm singing for God with the whole of my heart, you know, it's a reflection of how much my life is a testimony, how much my being here is a testimony, how much everything that I'm doing now, everything that I have now is a testimony. So like, yes, your story will make room for your testimony. By fire, by fall, will make room. Even the worst memory can become a subject for you to worship God, because you're no longer in that place anymore. You're no longer in that environment anymore. You're no longer in that toxic relationship. You're no longer in, you know, whatever the situation is. That's no longer you. That's no longer you. It will always be a bit of us. However, they no longer define us. You know, they no longer define who we are as individuals. You know, this too shall pass, you know. And I just thank God so much for allowing me again to have gone through certain things, because it shaped the whole of who I am now. And I'm so proud of this woman that I've become, and I'm so proud of what he's doing with me. Trust in whatever it is that you're going through, because you will heal from it, and it will become something for you to use in your prayer room as well. It will become something that you can use to motivate somebody else. It will become something that you can use as fuel to sing, to adore, to praise, to worship, or just to serve God. I think the best way for me to say it is your story will make room for your testimony. I think that's a key. I love it. Honestly, I love it. I love it.